to right there are loan modification. You see the image there with the cash being traded for the keys. We'll talk about that. And then straight up foreclosure. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. If you would, please mute yourself. So let's talk about loan modification. What does this first option look like, folks, when we're comparing these two options? Loan modification in this particular case study resulted in reinstatement and 6 months of payment, and adding those two together generated the reinstatement and the 6 months of payments generated $12,775, folks. And the note being sold after being held for 12 months at roughly 85% of the note's face. And that meant that brought $119,212 in, okay? We subtract out the purchase price. This generated a $57,655 total profit. So very, very strong profit ratios there. What does the cash for keys, the option number 2 or exit number 2, look like? This is very different, okay? And as we go from left to right, if you're not familiar with these options, you'll notice that we get more involved the further we go from left to right, okay? Loan modifications, which that's our goal. Let me just go ahead and tell you that. That's FiveWB's goal with every transaction, is to keep the borrower in the property as long as it is possible for them and it is good for them and we can make it happen. We're always going to make that the goal. Exit plan number 2 with the Cash for Keys program very simply represents, folks, a situation where a borrower does not have the means to hang on to that property. It just can't happen. We would be doing them a disservice trying to make that happen for them. They just don't have the revenue to make that happen. And what we've chosen to do in this scenario is offer the person some cash, some funding to help them get moved, get restarted in a very, self-respecting way so that they can move on with life. The numbers in this exit plan are selling at 90% of the fair market value, $148,500 less $5,000, which goes to the borrower. That is the cash that we're trading for the keys and their cooperation. Estimated in about $8,910 for marketing and closing costs. This generated $60,258 revenue. Now, timelines in these last two, folks, they become absolutely critical. Now, these can vary somewhat. These are not exact, but these are estimates. This could take between 6 months and a year, okay, to execute this plan. This last option that we're going to talk about, foreclosure, is literally not only the last option in my presentation, but it's the last thing we want to see happen. We don't have the desire to foreclose on anyone, but there are folks that we purchase loans and they're going to bury their head in the sand. They're not willing to do any type of loan modification. Won't talk about cash for keys and or back out of those.
Okay.
And you have to foreclose.
Okay, cool. So we'll just wait.
So I'm sorry.
All right. So now we can talk about the QBR.
I'm sorry. Please mute.
Show you the slides. Share screen. Oh, let me.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Isn't Zoom fun, folks? You just never know what's going to happen, right? So what happens in the last option in exit plan number 3 is the foreclosure. And you'll notice the timeline is really the big difference, right? We sell at 90% of the fair market value, $148,500. The difference here, as you can see between exit plan 2 and 3, is that $5K now is going to who? The attorneys make all the money in foreclosure, right? We would much rather see the borrower receive that money and get a fresh start, but some people put us in that box. It has to happen from time to time. The same $89.10 to market with, it's really the same closing cost, typically $60,258 being the revenue generated from the sale. But you see that we estimate it could take between 1 and 2 years now, right? What's the difference? Why? Well, it can take a long time to foreclose, folks, and we're just very real about that. And of course, that varies greatly depending upon what state you are.
Thank you so much for joining us to learn about the 3 possible outcomes with non-performing notes. You can continue our conversation by visiting FiveWB.com and clicking on the Work With Me link at the top to schedule a Zoom meeting. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you.